This week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Storyblocks. Every creator should try a Storyblocks membership. Their ever-growing library consists of 4K footage, After Effects and Premiere Pro templates, music, images, sound effects, and much more. And Storyblocks' Restock initiative is here to change the landscape of stock media by partnering with BIPOC and LGBTQI+ creators. Their Queer Spaces and Faces initiative will feature 6 new contributors from the LGBTQI+ community, each creating a collection that features their community authentically and relatably. Explore that library and subscribe today at storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Once again, that's storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Hey, let's start the show. For Thursday, June 10th, 2021. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Welcome to the show. This week I'm Norm and joined by just one colleague this week. It's a duo cast. And I got Jeremy Williams here. Jeremy.
Hi, Norm.
I like your shirt. I like the pinball shirt.
Yeah.
It reads as abstract. It reads as separated colors. It's very neat. I was tempted. Oh, not tempted, but I considered reaching out to Will to join us because Kishore is actually on a holiday. He's on a vacation this week, traveling, a real vacation with family for the first time in a while. And Will's actually super busy working on some projects of his own. But the reason I really wanted to potentially get Will on the podcast this week because Les Reaver, the intrepid Les Reaver, who made that very tune, who won essentially our contest of sorts.
What an accomplishment, because there were so many wonderful contributions to that contest.
And I still think fondly about those weeks where every week we were able to play a new musical intro with varying styles, heavy metal, chip tunes, Tron-like themes. Like, you guys really heeded the call for a new intro. And we're really happy with this one. So Les Reaver's intro is the one that you heard just now. But he reached out and he generated a dubstep version of that intro.
I haven't even listened to it.
I'm not going to play it today.
You're going to wait for Will.
I'm going to wait for Will.
Yeah.
Right. So it's something for all of us to anticipate and enjoy. And even to surprise Will, because I know he doesn't listen to this podcast.
What?
Whatever. No. He does his own podcast. It's called the Tech Pod.
He does his own podcast that we don't listen to.
That's right. It's some type of whatever the opposite of symbiotic relationship is.
Right.
We just don't cross the streams. That's what's happened.
Nice.
But I'm looking forward to being able to play that one. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm great, man. I'm great because the game that I've been working on for the past 5 months, like 12 hours a day, is potentially, and I'm knocking on wood here, potentially going gold tonight.
Wow.
So we are in QA, fingers crossed, we're going to cross the finish line. So it's potentially a very good day. I mean, I'm surprised, like you would think I don't have time to podcast today, but funny enough, like this day is pretty lax. Like we're in QA, we're no more changes. We're hoping they don't find any game-breaking bugs. It's been there for a few days and we're looking good. So fingers crossed. I'm very happy about that.
Well, the folks at Other Ocean are so tuned into the history and the traditions of the long history of game development. What does going gold mean in this day and age? Is there still a ceremonial burning of a gold disc? Is there a gold USB key? Are you uploading via a gold braided, Ethernet cable? What's the deal?
Yeah, that all sounds good. There's not even like a button. No, it's literally an upload. It's a packaged file that is uploaded, at least in terms of like digital distribution. But you're right. The Gold Master, it used to mean a gold CD, right? It was like a nice special disc that would be your final burned copy of your project. And that was only for the CD era.
Right.
I don't know what they called it in the floppy disk era.
My assumption with I don't think they called it gold. I think that the terminology was because the material of that CD was retained better, or
More
was
expensive.
more impervious?
Yeah.
More impervious to degradation. So that was your master. That's what would go in the archives.
Yeah.
I suppose, right? Just like, or was it a call? I mean, this could be completely apocryphal. I actually don't know. But or was it a callback to the music industry and having your gold record? Because that would be the best quality. That's what the pressing was based on.
So like everything that got pressed, you would just sort of be optimistic and is hoping you'd go gold with this thing. Is that the idea that like it's
I don't, or whatever the master vinyl was right, like whatever that master is, was that gold? I don't know.
I'm going with I was the CD editor for PC Gamer magazine, so as somebody who has worked professionally in the CD industry, I'm going to go with it was a gold disc.
Not like physical, like not material.
I think not obviously 24 karat, but it had a gold quality to it, a gold visual quality. That's what I'm going with.
Got it.
Anybody who knows better, let us know.
Okay. All right. Well, congratulations in advance. Knocking on wood for you as well.
And the game should be announced at some point in the near future, and then I can't wait to talk about it with you.
Well, there's also E3 going on, or very soon, and we're obviously it's not there. It's not a thing that we cover on the reg, but there are peripheral things that are announced alongside E3 that we'll get to. And just to get things up front, as you're listening to this, the first episode of Disney Plus's Loki show has debuted. As of this recording, I have not watched it yet.
Me neither.
So we may do a weekly recap, next week for the first episode. We'll have to touch base with everyone else on the team to make sure we're in sync in our viewing. But very hotly anticipated, but it had just come out. No spoilers. If anything, we'll do what we did that previous time.
I haven't even checked the reviews. Where are they right now? Are they
thumbs up?
They are?
Thumbs up. Great. I think the reviewers got to watch the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
And the showrunners have come out and said this is a standalone thing. You don't need to watch this to understand the next series of movies, but I'm sure they're just saying that. I'm sure there'll be lots of intermingling of the storylines and characters. Hopefully that will be really good. I mean, it's something I look forward to every week. I like the weekly drops of content.
I'm into it. I just watched the opening ceremony for the Avengers Campus, which also opened this week. It was really, very ceremonial. Like it was a lot of people up there, reading from a teleprompter, how thrilled they are to be here, how long they've worked on Avengers Campus. They had Paul Rudd,
Ant-Man himself.
Yes. And the new Captain America, former Falcon.
Yes. Sam Wilson. Yeah.
Yes. And so that, it was fun. But lots of impersonators, who in costume.
They're called face characters.
Yeah. And so I'm curious how that's going to go over with the fans. I'm sure it'll be great because everybody, like half the kids at Disneyland are there for the characters. And this is just a whole new set of them. Yep.
And it's one ride that's available right now. It's a Spider-Man ride. From what I hear, it's very similar to the Toy Story Midway Mania ride, where you're going on like a track with a vehicle, and you're doing some AR style, 3D screen style interactions.
Except instead of holding the blaster, it's like what you're talking about. Toy Story Mania has like a gun that you pull a string on.
Yep.
This you actually use your hands, Kinect style, and you do this and you web sling. And it apparently, like, it looks good. Like, it looks surprisingly good. It looks like they're coming out of your hands, and that's neat. I will say one thing I learned that I didn't know. This is next level, like, DLC thinking. You can buy at the gift shop things to wear on the ride that give you like 3 times as many webs.
And they're visibly tracked or RFID tracked?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can buy like different versions, ones that make different symbols show up and things. Yeah, and everybody on the high score list, because there's always going to be a high score list after these rides, they have a symbol that says
they've paid for the in-game purchase.
Yes,
not just an aesthetic in-game purchase that they learn nothing from the loot boxes and the EAs of the world. Oh,
right,
they can get away with it.
Yeah,
because they're Disney. It's reservation based in terms of booking your time slot because of the way Disneyland is open right now and COVID protocols. So what I hear is at 7 a.m. every day, it's like booked immediately because it just opened. It's only a week old. And even getting into the campus itself, just if you want to see the sights of it all, it's like a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour wait in line.
Oh my
So
God. Wow.
I'm not in a rush. I'm not in a rush at all to do this. There's going to be a big e-ticket ride at some point, the Rise of the Resistance equivalent. And, we've talked about theme parks on the show in the past and how interestingly there's the Mississippi Divide, right? Like how Marvel east of the Mississippi, Universal Parks has the rights. And that's why there is the Spider-Man ride, the Hulk roller coaster over at Universal Studios Florida. And so this Avengers Campus may just be a West Coast exclusive.
Oh,
if that's the case. And I don't think they're going to do one in Walt Disney World.
Well, they got the Disney Hotel.
Yes. Oh, they get that
I'm sorry,
the Halcyon, the
Star Wars Hotel. Star Wars Hotel. Yeah.
Yeah, the Halcyon. Yeah. Can't wait for that too. Okay, let's then quickly jump into a flurry of news. Nope, that's the here we go. It's happened. Finally, we have Billionaire. We've had this before. Rich people paying their way to space. Richard Garriott famously was someone who booked a ride up to the International Space Station on a Soyuz with the capsule. But we've had a billionaire to build a company from scratch and will send himself, pay his own way to space on rockets that he owns. Jeff Bezos is going up there this July on a Blue Origin first flight on the New Shepard.
Yeah, I guess the flight lasts about 10 minutes. Now, my question is, does that feel like an eternity or a moment?
For an Android, 0.3 seconds is an eternity.
Is Jeff Bezos an android?
He's a massive Star Trek fan, so it might as well be the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, he had a cameo in Star Trek Beyond as an alien. He's famously a massive Star Trek fan. And we could argue he's done more to bring the Star Trek computer into our homes than anyone else with the Echo devices.
Which, by the way, you can name computer.
That's right. You can say computer with hold that mouse up.
Yep.
Computer. Good for him. He's retired. He'll be no longer the CEO of Amazon. The company's gonna be run by someone else. Let him pursue his passion. I'm sure Elon Musk is shaking furiously that he won't be the first to send himself on his own company to space. They definitely have a competition of sorts going on between SpaceX and Origin, Blue Origin. I hope it goes well and safely.
Yeah,
but it's quite a thing that someone can have so much wealth to build a company, yes, to do private contracts and send satellites up, but also to fly himself to space.
That is something, absolutely. But I imagine if you were Jeff Bezos, you would start feeling all the things you can't do even with money. Like he still had to wait how many years to make it happen, and he couldn't buy his way out of that.
Right.
So there's always going to be some limitations, even on the mega rich.
And you have multiple companies, or you have Richard Branson with Virgin Galactic already pre-selling seats for people to do about a 10-minute, edge of space type thing. Jeff Bezos is bringing his brother, Mark Bezos. So
his best friend. Yeah.
Oh, his best friend. Okay. It's good to be his brother, I guess. Right.
No, that's what he said.
Perks.
Yeah. That's what he said. He's bringing his brother. He's going to space with his best friend.
Familial perks.
Yeah.
Of getting up there. And this is not to the moon. This is not to Mars, but it feels like the first step. If you read that book Seven Eves, they very much had a billionaire analog to what we have in the real world. Building a company and sending himself this kind of rogue billionaire flying off to space. So we'll be watching it with keen attention, and like I said, we hope it's all goes well.
Do you know if they'll live stream that?
I don't think he craves that attention the same way that the SpaceX folks and Elon Musk do the SpaceX flights.
Okay,
I'm sure it's a consideration, but the SpaceX team, the comm team, the communications team, they have the documentation and the live streaming stuff down, and they are very social media tuned and media tuned in general.
Even NASA's learned a lot over the past 5 years.
Yeah,
with their Mars landers.
I don't know if, as a PR thing, it's just like that. When Felix Baumgartner did the Red Bull jump, right? The biggest free fall right from the edge of space, quote unquote. And that was such a massive PR campaign with articles and this whole thing. And then like very shortly later, you had this, another billionaire or ultra rich person quietly do the same thing, but beat that record and not make a big deal out of it. Sometimes they're just thrill seekers and they just want to do the thing and they don't need the attention. Who knows? It's not a world that we're familiar with.
No.
A world that we are familiar with in the world of video games. And I know you weren't the biggest Battlefield player, but I was a big Battlefield player. And Battlefield 6, or as it's now formally known, 2042, had its launch trailer revealed this week. Not the gameplay trailer,
right,
but a full like in-game engine showing the graphics, showing the kind of environments and the style of play.
They call it the game engine trailer. Game engine footage is what you see at the beginning of the trailer. And it's long. How long is that trailer? I want to say a few minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah. And I got halfway through it. And my mind, I read that and I was like, what? And then halfway through it, my mind had just switched to this is a cinematic. I want to see gameplay. And then I remembered having read that and I rewound. I was like, what? This is amazing.
I mean, it looks fantastic, but you also got to give credit to they're using filming tools.
Yes. Which Unreal Engine basically is now. Like Unreal Engine is used by the film industry widespread.
Yes. And this is Frostbite though, right? This is DICE.
I know.
It's proprietary. But yeah, every game engine, Unity, Unreal, Frostbite, you can use the same assets and render something that a player would expect to play on a current gen / next gen console or PC, but it's played differently when you have post-processing effects on, or you have the incredible camera angles. There's some like dogfighting scenes here, obviously with that HUD that just look incredibly scripted with the cameras. So it's not the same as the gameplay trailer of the playing release where you're going to have the first person mouse movements, controller movements. And I think movement goes along to making a thing feel cinematic and pre-rendered.
Absolutely. Like the camera movement was for the camera. Like in this case, it wasn't for the player. The big difference.
Yeah. And the big thing here is they're going to 64 versus 64, 128 players.
How much is classic Battlefield?
At most 64. And that was on the PC side. It was like Battlefield 2. And then it kind of, with some of the earlier console versions, 32 players, 16v16. What's been on the word on the street is that it's like 7 maps, but each map may have multiple areas that were just as big as one map in a previous Battlefield game. So scale, it's all taking advantage of the next gen consoles being able to have the fast memory and load and stream in those assets so quickly, and then doing the network management where if you're on a massive environment and technically 64 versus 64, you're only seeing maybe 20, 30 people at once total, and you don't need to get all that data, and they can network manage. And it's interesting. PC Gamer had an article, I forgot the name of the game, but talking about real-time massive multiplayer encounters that are going to be possible with current internet becoming faster, with infrastructure, with game engines optimizing, where you could have hundreds and hundreds of players in one scene at once playing in real time.
That's
smoothly.
Amazing. I mean, you think about World of Warcraft, 10 years ago, you get 100 players in the same room and like one of the
chugs.
Exactly. One of the major cities, you start to see a slideshow. Yep. But no doubt. I mean, the new Ratchet and Clank game, Rift Apart, is getting like great reviews in part because they're saying like it is showing off the PlayStation 5 and what it can do better than anything it has yet. And it's those fast loading times and being able to pull yourself between worlds instantaneously is really something new, and it's cool. I'm excited to see how that applies to multiplayer as well, like you're saying.
And they got to scale the gameplay. Like the game has to be fun for 16 versus 16, as well as fun for 60 versus 64. And when it's at that scale, what is the scope of it? Are you talking about a Fortnite style play for 15 minutes, or you're invested in a big 2-hour battle that goes back and forth? Like, what is the balance for that?
Weeks long. And when you go to sleep and you wake up and the battle's still going.
And what does it mean when you have so many players in the same screen at once? What are like the weird social dynamics? Are you still squad based? Are there things that like, does it feel more like chaotic or chaos? Right. And I think all these things are really nice frontiers to explore for multiplayer.
I guess they said there is no battle royale mode. and there's no campaign.
No, I mean, I think players have moved beyond needing that checkbox of a campaign. Everyone just buys these for multiplayer, and I'm glad they're not chasing not so much a fad, but the trendiness of a battle royale, or in the past games, some of the Call of Duty style gameplay. Go for what makes Battlefield.
See, I have a different perspective on that. Like I'm someone who enjoys the single player campaigns because I'm not what I used to be when it comes to my online gaming prowess. So I do miss that, but it is a massive investment on the part of the development team. I mean, that's going to be so much of their time and effort spent on a period, on a block of the game that will take people 6 hours to finish. And then they spend months playing this other chunk, the multiplayer stuff. So I understand the priority there. I just do like the campaign when it's available.
Do bots, does that not satisfy that same itch for you, playing the multiplayer version with bots?
You joking? No. I mean, the last time I did that, to be fair, was in I haven't played in so long. What's the battle royale game we played on Quest so much?
Population 1.
Yeah, Pop 1. Like the bots in that are like really, really bad. That's an example of how it's just not the same. But would you say that the Battlefield bots in the past have been pretty great?
The early ones not so great. They're nice, like fodder fillers, to fill up the game room and feel like you get maybe fewer points when you kill them, or just to create the atmosphere. I'm surprised that, I don't know, maybe this is the case already, but developers have not used neural learning and machine learning to take the telemetry data and the player data of people playing, cumulatively hundreds of thousands of hours of their game, to at least make the bots maybe not more competitive, but at least behave more realistically, even in the background, right? When we talk about at scale.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, every other area of the tech industry is into the neural nets and machine learning. I'm surprised that we haven't seen that applied to AI, or at least not in a way that they've made it a bullet point and bragged about it.
Right. Well, that's Battlefield 2042. I think on the 13th they're doing the gameplay trailer, and the rumor is it'll be this fall in the maybe October timeframe. The last bit of news I want to go over is The Verge had a report that Facebook is planning and has not announced, not confirmed, a smartwatch next summer to compete with presumably the Apple Watch. And this feels, when I read this, it felt like when Facebook was making phones, right, to compete with existing things, and those all failed. They have like the Portal devices, but it felt not aligned with their VR or AR efforts. But the Verge report was that it's a watch with heart rate monitor, so obviously a big selling point for exercise and sports, but with 2 cameras on there, including a detachable camera that would use kind of like a GoPro, and for video calling, 1080p video calling, as well as tie into Instagram feeds, which they own.
Yes, Apple's dragged their feet on adding a camera to the watch to do the whole Dick Tracy thing. A long time. Like everyone's expected that, and they just keep waiting. And I guess they can afford to, as being like the main go-to smartwatch maker. But if they had some more competition doing it, why push them ahead with that? I have a hard time imagining that anybody can compete with the Apple Watch.
And you mean a camera, like a front-facing, viewer-facing, talking FaceTime camera, not a film the world camera, right? Yeah. It feels like a no-brainer for that. I mean, I know it obviously would take some space and battery and on a device, but this is, I mean, to me, this news does not seem interesting, except for the fact that Boz, who's the head of Facebook's Oculus division and the hardware division, quoted this article and kind of responded to it, and with a non-confirmation, but maybe a bit of it felt like some of a confirmation, a tacit confirmation that they were working on something similar, but may not be a real product. But put out the idea that connected the dots, actually, for me, that we know they're working on wrist-based controllers for VR and AR devices.
Right.
This could be a stepping stone to that being something you wear beyond just when you're playing VR games or AR games as a controller, but the form factor would be something you'd wear as a watch, a fashion accessory, as a practical day-to-day thing, with also those haptics and the sensing built in.
Right. Yeah, and whatever the AR solution is that both Apple and Facebook are working on, that is an everyday device. They want that to be something you bring with you out into the world and use as often as the battery will last.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think of controller specific, the touch controllers or VR controllers with those haptic wristbands as being things you strap on to use a certain function. But just like they want AR glasses to work as sunglasses or work as things, to feel normal even when you're not using the AR functionality, it would make sense that a design idea exploring what a smartwatch would be like to tap into the benefits of the Facebook ecosystem of applications. If Instagram or Facebook Messenger becomes the killer reason to have a Facebook watch, then it makes it easier for them to put in those sensors and get people wearing those things for the AR devices.
Yeah. I'll be very curious to see how well it sells, because obviously Facebook has a ton of users. I mean, billions of users.
Yeah.
But those are all people who are using a free product. And there's a lot of Oculus users, but I feel like that's a slightly different, I don't know, different demographic, different reason for using something than the fact that it is Facebook connected has nothing to do with why they're buying that product. So I'll be curious to see if Facebook can sell a product that is really, really like Facebook branded through and through and is connected to their ecosystem of apps. It'll be interesting to me because, Facebook has its detractors, and I'm not sure that they have they certainly don't have the privacy MO that Apple does, especially, and we saw Apple just drill that home Monday on WWDC.
Yeah, and Portal is probably the closest device in that realm where it's tapping into Messenger and the network benefits of so many people using Messenger, and that being you're buying it because you're buying something to tap into the ecosystem, a hardware device. But again, not confirmed as a real product, but just nice food for thought that The Verge reported on. You mentioned WWDC, and that is our first big topic this week after our news. So let's play an interstitial. Hey everyone, Norm here. Before we continue, I want to let you know that this week's episode is also made possible with support from Indeed. So you're the hiring expert for your company, and what you really need is help making your shortlist of quality candidates. You need a hiring partner that helps you make your life easier. You need Indeed. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3, post, screen, and interview, all on Indeed. Get your quality shortlist of candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description faster. Only pay for the candidates that meet the must-have qualifications, and schedule and complete video interviews in your Indeed dashboard. Indeed Instant Match gives you quality candidates whose resumes fits your job description immediately. And with Indeed skills tests, you can choose from more than 130 skills tests. On average, those tools reduce hiring time by 27%. And according to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. Get started right now with a free $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/onlyattest. Get a $75 job credit at Indeed.com/onlyattest. Indeed.com/onlyattest. The offer is valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply. Now back to the show. Perhaps what was most interesting about this WWDC to me was what was not announced versus what was announced, because so many people had expected new hardware. So people expected a follow-up to last year's M1 chips, maybe some of the MacBook Pros, the rumored 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros. And in fact, even in the YouTube metadata of their live stream video, the tagging, they put like MacBook Pro M1X in there.
What?
Which is, that could have just been for SEO purposes, because they knew people would be searching that based on the rumors. They were very aware of the rumor mill, but people were certainly, I was expecting it, and instead it was much more of a traditional WWDC in terms of it was for developers. It was for app developers. Users are going to get informed about the new macOS, iOS, iPadOS updates, and there were quite a few of them. So let's go through them each one at a time, starting with iOS. It felt like the big thing here was messaging and FaceTime and turning these kind of killer applications on the Apple platform into bigger deals that maybe start infringing on your Zoom, your Slack, your Twitter, because there's such big anchor points in the Apple ecosystem. Does that feel like that's you?
Yeah, yeah. It felt. I mean, I think they're all good improvements. They're welcome improvements. I think by and large, we are at the point with iOS 15 that the improvements are not going to be groundbreaking. Like they're going to be. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense, especially given what we learned the past year and given the competition that Apple has in that space. And in this case, I do feel like this is Apple playing catch up. They're adding Zoom-like features to FaceTime because they lacked them during the past year when everyone was using Zoom. And now they also realize that people are going to continue to use Zoom because of all the what we've learned about the efficiencies about remote remote work.
Yep. And I think there's also like a kind of a mental disassociation between how people think of FaceTime, even though FaceTime has group chats. I think of FaceTime as IP phone calls, right? I don't think of it as video conferencing. I think of it, I use it the same way I would make a phone call, except with video. It's for quick conversations, maybe a long, catch-up conversation, but not in the same way that I think of Zoom as being maybe a browser-based PC or laptop-based device where I'm expected to do a big grid of windows.
What I would have liked to have seen from them that I didn't see was we're bringing CD quality audio to video conferencing, or we're bringing ultra low latency to remote musicians so that they can collaborate over the internet as best as possible. And I didn't see that type of groundbreaking, but maybe they're still playing catch up.
There's a lot of backend stuff that I think maybe inhibits that, and obviously end-to-end security, the fact that they open up to web browsing, so anyone on a web browser on an Android device or a Windows PC can now jump into a FaceTime call, right? In the scope of a window, so kind of an asymmetrical FaceTime experience. There's grid view now. They did do spatial audio, so where the person's icon and where their face is on the phone is where you might hear them if you're wearing one of the new earbuds, as well as voice focusing, so muting the background sound, and they made a big deal out of that stuff, which it's kind of
the opposite. They have which I thought was smart. Like they have a button that focuses on the voice if there's somebody doing the lawn behind you, but there's also the wide spectrum mode. And as someone with kids that have been doing music lessons over the internet, that's great because they're a guitar teacher or a piano teacher needs to be able to hear every soft thing that's possibly happening.
Right. Or lots of people together in a room, as long as it sounds clear, and they take pride in the hardware, their microphones and the audio, and then a lot of it, the kind of AR features that even Facebook and Oculus had teased about from out of the research labs. So if you're wearing AirPods and you're talking to someone, their voice gets accentuated, so you're getting amplification.
That's cool
when you're talking one-to-one to someone in person, and when we're able to see people.
They said that would be helpful for people who have mild hearing loss, which I feel like I'm getting there, and I can't wait to try that out.
We've always said AirPods are not headphones; they're smart electronics, wearable smart devices. They are like more akin to an Apple Watch or Air glasses than just selling you a nice Bluetooth headphones. The whole idea of getting a party to have FaceTime on and be able to do picture-in-picture while browsing and watching movies, that's the kind of thing where I do not feel like, and maybe they have the data to prove me wrong, maybe it's younger generation that does this, but I don't see myself doing that. Again, it goes to that mindset of like, how do people think of FaceTime?
Well, yeah, it depends on the buy-in from the partners too. Like I didn't see Netflix on that chart of partners who will be able to sync up. So I don't know who else is missing from it, but Disney Plus is on there. You'll obviously be able to do Apple stuff and
Ted Lasso. Yep.
Yeah, and my daughter, my 11-year-old, had a birthday party back in January, and they did that. They the whole party, remote, obviously, watched a movie together in sync using Google's version of that. I forget what they call it, but like Google Party or whatever it is. So everyone, you hit pause and it pauses for everybody. And it's a good experience, but it could be better. And more than likely, everyone has an Apple device. I could actually see that working well.
Yeah.
As long as you can get it up on the TV, which you can with Apple TV or any TV that has like AirPlay on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's I thought that was a cool feature. I'm glad to see them again playing catch up because that's a good one.
There's catch up. There's also some feeling of feature creep. And I do feel like a lot of it is them looking at the applications, like Notes, for example, as these basic that previously were like just like your essential applications and making them more full featured as Trojan horses to try to take over a Slack or Discord or Twitter or the other very popular app ecosystems that Apple would rather you spend in their silo.
Yeah.
iPadOS also more aesthetic updates. Last year they added widgets, but it was really for that just the today screen. Now resizable widgets again feels like catch up to Android. Customization, the notes ability. I like that kind of ability that it feels like a power user feature where you swipe from the bottom corner and you can write notes tied to any application you're on, and then it'll kind of archive that and cycle through that.
Hey,
but these are features. Yeah,
that whole text the OCR stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
Is amazing, and so that's part of iOS. It looks like I'm sure it'll be an iPad. That's where you can take a picture of anything with words in it, and it will decipher that text, and you can actually drag it, your finger across it, and select that text. You could take a picture of a whiteboard with a bunch of notes in it, select that text, copy it into a note, paste it. I mean that's. It looks too good to be true. I mean, like I want to use that before, so I can see just where the failing points are, but it looks cool.
I mean, Google's had this for a while in their Google Lens application. They purchased Word Lens.
Right.
We demoed this a long time ago.
Amazing app.
Yeah, and it did the thing where you can even translate AR style, like change out words into a different language and match the background so it looks perfectly blended. And they do that. I think that the more important part of that feature is the back data archiving. We're reaching this point where we've had over 10 years of taking images on our phone, and that's why iCloud is such a big business for them, because we're constantly migrating as we're getting new phones all the media that we've captured, right? So now they got you paying $10 a month, $3 a month, whatever it is you want to pay for to store that stuff and access it remotely. But now they're doing what Google's been doing with photos, where if I want to find a photo of a dog that I've had or a photo of a restaurant, they can crawl through and index all of that intelligently. And for Apple, their selling point is doing that on device without any cloud help.
And
on
I'm excited.
Device,
same
private.
with Siri now, and I'll be excited to see how quickly Siri responds, because I can't tell you the number of times that Siri doesn't respond. Like just says, "There's a problem. Try again in a moment." I'm like, why can't you try again in a moment?
Do you remember the very first instances of Siri did not need, we're able to do some stuff locally, like making phone calls, dial this number.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it parses between things that you want to do offline versus things that have to be done online, like looking up directions. Is it going to default to local compute now for everything, that the whole, like this section of Siri for, or like,
don't you think that'll be the first line of defense? Like it'll go there and it'll check those capabilities. And if what you've just asked isn't possible, then it goes to the cloud.
And it has to do that seamlessly. It can't add any extra latency in making that decision. It has to be the fastest one immediately. And that means kind of like whitelisting the commands and the types of commands and training Siri.
Yeah.
And again, seamless is the thing here. If there's any kind of friction in adding local compute, people are going to default to like what Google does, which is super fast with their dictation.
That's true. But isn't that cloud-based?
It is all cloud-based. They'll prefer. They won't care as much. The benefit of privacy will matter less if the convenience of speed isn't there.
Just real quickly, also they teased, and I'm sure you saw this too, what we're going to see from the AR glasses, and that's the augmented reality maps that they unveiled. So you get out, you come out of the subway, you don't know where you are, you take your phone, you just scan around the world. It recognizes the streets and the buildings, and it will put street names hovering in the real world that are properly obscured by foreground objects, and it looks amazing. Like it looks super. That's the future. You're gonna have glasses on and get your maps projected for you.
amazing yet also so dystopian. Like amazing in a sense of like if the alignment and the speed and responsiveness works, yes, from a
Yeah.
tech standpoint, I love that idea.
Yeah.
But also so dystopian idea. Let's hide the undesirable parts of the world and mask that with
Right.
the Apple rendered
Yeah.
trees and Apple maps and directions and advertise or not advertising, I guess, for them, but like all the other things that they prefer. Like that's the fear of AR and a lot of issues.
That you brought up the no advertising thing. That was, as I mentioned before, like they kept coming back to it. Like we've added all these new features and abilities to iOS and Safari to block advertisements. They even explained how people use tracking pixels at one point in order to see your IP address and see what where you're visiting from. And I'm just thinking to myself, I get it. Privacy is a good mission, and I think people will, by and large, click that button that says "Don't allow them to track me." And sure, but the past 20 years of the internet have been built on being able to do that. Like there's an entire industry, like industries that have built themselves up to be free services in exchange for advertising to you. And I just wonder, like, okay, that's good for consumers, but how is this, like, there's got to be fallout from this. There's going to be small companies that rely on that data that aren't going to be able to exist anymore. It's not all Facebook's and Google's. But although I do think that that's where Apple's coming from, they are competing with those two.
Absolutely. And you've seen the ads, right? They've been running them nonstop. The ad where the Apple iPhone users walking, there's like a crowd of business people around them that represent the ad agencies and like peeking over their shoulder, presses the button, and then they all poof disappear. It's a compelling ad, but I think you're right. It's going to be a reckoning in business models, and I think it'll be consumer determined whether people will want to pay. If big networks, if a Facebook says because of Apple, you have to pay to use Facebook, which I don't think will happen. It's not going to get to that point. People will revolt because people like things for free. And there are aspects to the tracking that they're okay with to get a free service. They'll make the choice. The choice is up to them. And I think right now, the default choice of turning off tracking is just so convenient and compelling with things like the advertising and what they mentioned in the keynote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They even push it in iCloud. So iCloud Plus is a thing that's a free add-on service that they're put on top of anyone with the iCloud subscription that basically allows like double layered VPN, like double blind VPN. They're not even calling it that because they don't even know, right? So there's no possible way to track it or throwaway dummy email accounts.
That's not cheap, and like that typically slows down your internet experience. So I'm curious to see how theirs compares because I imagine that they've created a speedy solution to that.
Yep, and maybe that's throwing money at the problem.
Yeah,
right. It'll be opt-in, but again, hammering in that message. Trust us because you don't have to give us your data. The last thing I want to talk about was probably the coolest demo having to do with Mac OS Monterey. And this was a universal control was the name of the demo. It was a way to pair using maybe a MacBook with an iMac and also an iPad. They had the demo. Craig had them lined up, and with a mouse on the Mama Bear, the middle, right? The MacBook could move a cursor from one screen over Wi-Fi onto the iPad, drag an image literally across, presumably aligned in the software to know that the iPad's to the right of the MacBook.
How did it know that?
MacBook, it's not spatially aware. It's not like I mean,
Bluetooth LE. I mean, like the tracking beacons. No,
the iPad doesn't have the tracking beacons. iPad doesn't have the ultra wideband. I think it's your Windows classic right click, drag the screen. The screen's on screen 1, screen 2, and screen 3. Create that alignment.
Yeah.
But in the demo, seamless worked where latency wise, drag an object from one to the other. Now, third-party apps and Apple has even allowed you to use an iPad as a second screen for the longest time, an extension of your MacBook. This is not that though, because it's not a second screen for your MacBook. It is just the native iPad application.
Yeah, when the mouse is over there, it actually turns into the accessibility feature of a mouse cursor.
Yeah, exactly. The cursor dot. Yeah. Right. And the fact that you can drag from that then to a Final Cut project in their demo. Presumably, you'll need the apps to support that in the API. So your whatever media assets have to be compatible. It's going to go over Wi-Fi. There'll be some type of like
or
shorthand.
It's all iCloud based, and the assets are already shared.
Well, iCloud is a form uses Wi-Fi, right? It's like they're connected to each other over a internal Wi-Fi.
But it's
network.
Also constant, and so maybe those assets were already in the cloud and easily brought down, or at least thumbnail versions of them. I don't know.
And you have to initiate it also from the MacBook side too. You're not initiating, you're not flinging things over from the iPad. But to me, as neat of a feature as this is, and I'm sure it's going to be compelling for people, it builds on Apple's case that as much as the iPad is a fully featured and functional and it has Photoshop and productivity and multitasking, they want you to buy the iPad and the MacBook.
Yeah.
You got to buy both for the full experience. They're not going to replace each other. In fact, they work so much better together. What a thing, right?
You're right. It was a great demo. And I'm glad, that's a cool feature. It does feel like a power user feature.
Yeah. I mean, so many of the iPadOS, I can't imagine my parents ever pulling up the notes from the corner of the screen or using widgets or something. They're happy web browsing and YouTube and media. Like the full screen app nature of the iPad works for that type of user.
Yeah.
But there are also people, they also sell a $1,500 iPad. So, they got to serve those people too. No MacBooks announced here. No follow-up to M1 chip. Adobe did release a Lightroom Classic M1 native version, as well as InDesign and Illustrator. And apparently benchmarks are they run super fast. So that's one of the reasons that I personally am looking forward to the new MacBook Pros, because I maybe want that as a photo device.
I picked up one of the new iMacs.
iMacs 24 inches for home.
Yeah, with the M1. And it's snappy. I mean, I traded in our 4-year-old Apple iMac, which really had no problem if it was only one user. But with 4 people signed up to be various users, you're literally in for a 5 to 10 minute wait when you switch users.
When they did the animation?
Just loading in all the data. It was unusable. And even like the most patient people in my family were like, that's enough. So we picked up the new M1. And of course, it's like practically instantaneous. It's fast. And there's no boot up process. It's like a big iPad. It's like you press the power button and it's just on.
Right. And that's what you want out of the MacBooks also. No loading, solid state. This is for a family computer. And I think those new 24-inch ones work really well. They make a lot of sense as family computers. No Ethernet, Wi-Fi only.
No, there's Ethernet.
You got to have a dongle for Ethernet, right? It's not wide enough. It's not thick enough.
It's built in to the power brick.
That's right. The power brick. All right. Well, that's it for WWDC. Let's move to some more fun stuff with our next big topic. If you ask me, you got to spend $200 tomorrow, what would you spend it on? I would, without hesitation, tell you I would pre-order the PlayDate if that was possible.
Yeah,
this is from what's the name of the company again? They're the game publishing company. Panic Software. They publish Firewatch, right? An Untitled Goose Game, and they've been working this for a long time now. This novel portable game console that has a crank.
Well, it's all about the crank.
No, I disagree.
Oh, good.
I think the crank is nice and novel as an input mechanic, but it's about the time game releases. That's what I think is.
That's also cool. But it's 1-bit graphics, right? So it's black and it's off. So those are the colors you have to work with,
like a TI-83 calculator.
Right. Yeah, and it's like a, I don't know, I don't forget what the resolution is, but it's like 320 by 200. It's in that ballpark, and although it's probably widescreen, and it's got buttons and a D-pad, but it has this crank on the side of it. And I guess the crank they came up with it. The design company came up with it and pitched it back to Panic, and they were like, "Yeah, absolutely." And for me, that is the thing that's all about, because that's the novel input device. Like that's what the Wii had, and the Wii was really fun because you could do things you'd never done before. And to me, you're going to play a lot of these very small independent games that are hopefully not too much of a time commitment with an input device that is novel and takes it activates a part of your brain that you haven't used before to play games with. And so that's what I'm most excited about.
because it's an analog. It's essentially a directional controller. You go forward or backward, but analog control and continuous analog control, which is why it's more than just a swipe, left and right. We're talking about the closest analog I can think to that is the original iPod click wheel, right, where you're just going in circles.
Yeah,
that's essentially that, but a physical crank that with maybe some resistance. It's got to feel good to use.
Yeah, and we haven't seen. They've revealed some of the games, but they didn't show a whole lot about what the crank will do. There's one that's like obviously a fishing game. It makes perfect sense. It looks like that. There's one of those, but there's also, it looks like there's one that you can go back and forwards through time using the crank, which looks interesting. I just think there's a world of possibilities. I mean, Tempest, it was basically like a spinner game. The Tron games use spinners. Like anything that uses a spinner, you could sort of take as a starting point and say, well, what could you do with something that has a slightly different direction to it and felt different? But the timed releases, you're right, that's a big part of it too. And they announced that there'd be twice as many games now with their first season of games, and all of the games come included. Like the first season is included with the cost of the device.
And then there'll be 2 games a week, and they want that community on Discord, on Twitter, to start chatting about the new games as they drop, almost in a way that Apple, it's different scale, right? But Apple Arcade didn't succeed in doing, having exciting regular releases that got people back into it. And so 24 games in a season, they'll do some type of season pass probably to get ongoing payment. And it's $180 plus shipping. It'll be available for pre-order in July. And then they also announced a dock that works as a speaker as well as a pen holder.
Yeah, it comes with a pen.
Comes with a pen. Great. No real need. I mean, it's not like a
charger.
HDMI out. Charger, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, charger meaning there's a port that you plug your USB cable into as opposed to plug it directly. Yeah.
Is that, well, okay. But the PlayDate charges when it's like, I assume, wirelessly, because it magnetically attaches to it.
Oh, yes, correct. The PlayDate, well, I don't know if the PlayDate just has a plug that it just plugs into in the back.
No, I'm going with magnetics.
You sure?
No, but I'm going with it.
Okay. All right. So much mystery. This is why it's so exciting. It's so novel. $180 in July. I'll be pre-ordering. I can't wait to play this.
400 by 240 is the resolution.
Yeah. Do you know any developers working on games for this?
I do.
Do you recognize the names, or you know personally?
I know them personally.
Ah, exciting. Are you sharing their excitement?
They're very excited about it. Yeah, they're really into this. Like it's really, there's not a whole lot of people coming out of RISD doing 1-bit art anymore. Like this is cool stuff that like you need specialized skills for. So the people who are producing art for this platform are uniquely talented, and I'm excited to see it because we don't see this type of style anymore.
But it's not like they're not manipulating compute. They're not trying to over leverage limited compute in a way that people hack old arcade games or old game consoles. There's plenty of compute here. It's the limitations are the display, the form factor, the input. Those are the design constraints that get them excited to create these kind of these fun week to play games.
Yeah, it's interesting. The imbalance between compute and graphical or whatever you want to say, like the bit depth of the graphics is interesting because there is ample compute like that. So you're going to see the capabilities to do interesting things with 2 colors. And so I'm and an interesting input device. So I'm very into this device, into this platform.
I suspect it's not the kind of thing that kids will be into, but really old retro gamers, people who remember the good old days.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our next topic. Jeremy, this comes courtesy of you because I have been borrowing your looking glass portrait for people watching the video, your Lightfield display that you backed on Kickstarter, which we mentioned, you backed it, I think, as we were recording a podcast episode, as I talked about the announcement for you. You're like, ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, and somehow I beat you to it because mine came first.
I know. Mine's still on a boat somewhere. It's going to get here. I've been using it for the past 2 weeks, and it's given me better insight into their software, some of how it works. I have a video on this on the site today, actually. But let's tell people, I mean, you haven't had a chance to talk about your experience with it and and what your impressions were.
Well, I feel like I'm a pretty big critic of like this type of thing. Like I wanted VR for so long, and I would buy all the things that promised it, and I was disappointed with them up until the Oculus Rift. And I was expecting this to be interesting, but more of like, oh, I'm curious how they did it. Not something that I thought everybody in the world would look at and appreciate. But I think this might be the latter. I think this might be something everybody can look at and appreciate. Because when I turned it on, I was just like, what? That is something new. Like I didn't expect it. Like it is like a next generation lenticular that is so high res that there's very little. There's almost. I mean, I want to say there's no ghosting between the different images. There's very little measurable ghosting between all the different perspectives that you can watch. And as you rotate, as you're seeing, like it looks 3-dimensional. It really does. And when you can apparently you have spent more time designing your own assets for it than I did, but the ones that ship on it are all good demonstrations, and you can tell that just like a 3D movie, you can choose to place assets deep into the device or even come out of the face of it. And it starts to get blurry at that stage. There is a sweet spot for sure.
Absolutely.
But it is also definitely 3-dimensional. Like you can move your head and you can peer around things in a way
parallax.
that I didn't expect.
It's really, really neat. One of the things, first of all, it's self-contained. So the past looking glass devices, you have to plug it over USB or HDMI, which you still can do. This works just like those on a computer, but there's Raspberry Pi 4 built in, and it comes preloaded with these assets. Now, what's interesting about these assets is while some of them look 3D, some of them look like pictures, none of it's being dynamically rendered. What they're essentially are either still images or movies that are playing on loop.
All the demos are movies. All the demos are movies. Can you put still images on there?
Yeah, and you have to render it in a certain way. So lenticular is really the best way to describe it, in that there is a filter on top of this LCD, essentially, that splits your perspective into up to 100 different different views. And most of the assets come in 48 different views, so about half of that. And so with the more views you get, the lower resolution, right? You get to see more of a parallax, but there's like a sweet spot also with the blurriness of the image, the crispness of the image, and how much parallax you can actually see the shadow moving behind the character, right? That's real parallax right there, right? And what's interesting is you open up one of these movies or the images, and you can actually see playing in real time, if it's a 10-second loop, the 46 different views in a grid layout. They call it actually a quilt, the quilt view, because it looks like a quilt you would sew together with 6 rows by 8 columns. And so when you're like loading in, one of the things you can do is there's a 3D model viewer. And so I have this plugged into my laptop. I load in an OBJ, whether it's a textured OBJ or I can take a 3D print STL file and just have it as a flat shaded OBJ. And I can dynamically, with my mouse cursor, drag my mouse cursor onto the looking glass and manipulate this 3D object. So then it is actually rendering it in real time. I can actually interact with this 3D object, turn it upside down, scale it up, move the lighting around, right? That's really, really cool. And when I'm like, okay, this is like a really nice perspective with the lighting's great. Then I can hit screenshot, and then it'll generate all 48 of those perspectives and save that as your image or your movie file, so that it becomes like a static thing. It's frozen in time moment that then I can view around.
And somebody's ported Doom to it, right?
Unity. So basically it's a shader that it's a lenticular shader that tells Unity or Unreal, hey, take this 3D engine. So Doom was basically a Unity version of Doom. And then please not just render one perspective, render all 48 perspectives and generate the quilt view of Doom. And so it requires a little more compute. It's actually done pretty slowly on like my laptop. On my PC, no problem. And you can play Doom in real time. I'm using a mouse and WASD and looking around the corners.
That's amazing.
Spotting those imps. And the resolution, it fades off. There's a sweet spot. So it gets extra blurry or pixelated. They do some blurring effects. But the thing that was novel to me is that unlike a lenticular, I guess maybe like a lenticular, I'm not looking at just 2 perspectives. at once. You know, like a 3D movie, there's like a sweet spot if you're sitting in the middle of the auditorium or the
Yeah.
middle of the living room where one image is going to hit my left eye, one image is going to hit my right eye, and the movie is calibrated as such where that's the sweet spot where I see the perfect amount of depth, perfect amount of focus. Here, my left eye might be getting 3 or 4 different views, and my right eye might be getting 3 or 4 different views on that side. But that's what you want to see. Because that's how the real world works. I'm getting photons from different angles
Is that
at
right?
once.
Huh.
And so that's why they call it a light field display, is because they're displaying, you know, as opposed to billions of photons.
That one right there is probably my favorite.
The little vortex through the clouds.
Yeah, like that's nuts. It looks so good, and the depth on that is like naturally blurry, and that's the first one you see when you turn it on, and it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, because maybe the thing is like the adjacent views are so close to each other that it doesn't appear as ghosting. It appears more like reality.
Yes, and they're so close together, and they in the render they do some blurring, some bokeh blurring in the back. So the stuff that's out of focus, it blends together, as opposed to looking like stacked ghost images. And so some of that's in their secret sauce. But it's magic. I mean, one of the great things is that the timing is such, you know, their hardware is affordable, $250. They're able to pack a Raspberry Pi 4 in here. They're able to, you know, have their lenticular screen and their LCD. But the fact that we all have iPhone, you know, or Android phones that can do depth maps.
Have you tried it?
Oh my God. Danica and I we went on my computer one night when the kids were asleep, and we just went on iCloud.com and just like started looking at our favorite pictures of our kids and saying, we love that picture, downloaded the JPEGs, which have the depth maps actually baked in.
You have to shoot with the front facing camera to get that.
Yes. Yeah. You or the back camera. Or both of them with the new phones will have the depth map actually.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. No, they even the portrait ones in the back here, they generate a grayscale depth map.
Oh.
And what the Looking Glass software does, their HoloPlay software does, is they instantly turns that depth map into a 3D model and texture maps the photo on top of it.
Wow.
And so you're looking at on the screen a dynamically, again, real time, because it's plugged into my computer. I can adjust the placement of where I want this 3D model, which is like normally like someone's head, right? A bulbous head with a texture map. Now, where do you want to place it, frame it? I can drop in elements like lighting. I can drop in, and this is all because it's running off the power of my PC at that point.
Right.
I can drop in animations, other load stuff from GIFs that you can find on the internet, and then bake that into a quilt stereo or a multi-view file.
Yeah. But I haven't heard you make any animations yet. Is that difficult?
So you can record with the object, the OBJ viewer and the model viewer. You can hit record, and it'll start. And as you manipulate, do like a turnaround, it'll start recording. The 48 views per frame at 30 FPS. And I think there are new tools for you to adjust the frame rate. Also, there's no length limit, right? 10 seconds is a sweet spot for a loop, but you can do 30 seconds, 40 seconds, or whatever. It just becomes a larger file. And I haven't done any of the Connect stuff. So the idea is that they also have software where you can do like a video call, a depth map video call, and it mounts it right on the portrait.
That's where I went immediately, especially, I mean, looking back at the last 18 months and how separated, loved ones are from one another, to be able to see a hologram FaceTime of each other. I think that would actually mean a lot. I don't think it's just a technical gimmick. I think that seeing a 3-dimensional person that you're speaking to in real time on that device would be quite something.
You were here for that episode, but we talked about at Google I/O, they showed that demo of Project Starlight, which was it was a video booth where they would do essentially this, a real-time light field capture of someone sitting in that booth, graphed it onto a blended model, and allow you in a 1-to-1 scale. So not just looking at a small portrait, 1-to-1 scale, look like you're sitting through a looking glass at someone else, and people get parallax and make eye contact as you're talking to them. Yeah. And it's powerful stuff, according, and I truly believe it. So yeah, check out the video when I have that out later today. But I'm super impressed. I can't wait to get mine. And there seems to be a lot of potential for games. They're dropping new holograms every week, so they have artists working on this stuff. And
where do you get them?
It's on their website. They actually just dropped their first drop this week, which is a fish tank. So a bunch of 3 different aquariums of animated fish that just swim around in the frame. So,
sweet.
Really, really neat.
I can't wait to get that back. You've had it too long.
You'll get it back tomorrow. I feel so lucky to have so much cool tech, right? Like I'm like sitting around. I got a 3D printer. I got a holographic display, and this week I also got a new lightsaber. So Jeremy,
yeah, let's see it. I hope it's not like the secret Disney one. No, it doesn't look like it.
No. It's not the secret Disney. We did talk a couple weeks ago about Disney's tape measure lightsaber, and in that, we talked about how the community of fans who've made lightsabers over the years have really gone all out in terms of the advancement, right? And even Kishore talked about neopixels being a technology. This is 100% neopixel based.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it's a machined hilt. This is Luke's hilt from Return of the Jedi.
I recognize machined. Yep. Nice work. Yep.
This is a blade that's a neopixel blade. I'm just going to give you a quick demo of the lightsaber first.
Okay.
So, see if it lights up.
Your whole room lit up.
I mean, it's bright.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, look at you! Look at you! You've got the real new trilogy moves. That's great.
So, gyro inside. If you can hear that.
Oh yeah.
Detection.
Yep. And it turns red. Nice.
And if I'm pretend fighting a stormtrooper.
What if you're real fighting a stormtrooper?
You can't really make that out, but as I hit that, it actually looks like a blaster has hit it at a random spot, and it blinks a certain spot.
That's great.
But Jeremy, Luke's hilt is, he has a green lightsaber. He's a green crystal. It's kyber crystal.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
This is blue.
Right. Uh-huh.
Maybe I want to change colors. Oh, this is the right one.
There you go. There you
go. Right?
Nice. Yeah. Why buy one kyber crystal when you can buy a rainbow?
Right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this delicately because I technically should not do this. It's a removable hilt.
Okay.
A removable blade like that. Actually, you know what? I have the tool right here to show you because it's a set screw.
Uh-huh.
And I can, if you're listening to the audio, I'm turning the set screw on the side of the hilt and removing the blade. And you can see it's bright on the inside.
Well, we certainly see that.
If you can see, it's actually a ringed pin system.
It's focused on your face.
I know. There
it is. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And on the inside of the hilt, the pins are just, they're just concentric rings. So it doesn't need to be aligned in any way.
Okay, cool.
Right? And so you have a NeoPixel lights in here.
Neat.
And it just plugs into here, jabs in. And to give you a little bit of sense of the electronics, it unscrews. And as opposed to a kyber crystal, there are models that people design that you can actually have a 3D printed kyber crystal on the inside. You have a LCD display.
Okay.
Soundboard, micro SD card, lights in the top, battery sits here, and you can change and load in your own music, your own sound effects. You can customize. You can do different profiles.
What is that light for? Right, that I'm seeing right now, the green on top. No, the very top.
That's what illuminates the tip of the blade right here, and this is for a display mode. So as I put this in, it just makes it so I can see the color of the blade. But this light actually isn't the light that permeates throughout the entire blade.
Those are in the blade.
Those are in the blade itself.
Yeah.
This is just for display purposes.
Right.
But the fact that it has a little OLED screen here with a menu system,
That you don't
all
even
the
see
electronics.
most of the time because it's
Most of the
embedded.
time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah, and it just screws back in.
That's a high quality lightsaber, Norm.
It is super high quality.
You know, a Jedi doesn't buy his lightsaber.
You saw that I screwed in the lightsaber, the housing together, right?
It's very cool. My son bought a lightsaber from one of the lightsaber vendors a while back, and it was this thing. It was like a one color one, and then we did that. We took it apart and did NeoPixels ourselves, and put a microcontroller in the base and the whole nine. And it was cool. It was a good experience. So I know how cool being able to make the lights go up is, like the turning on effect and being able to change colors.
And there's so much customization. The profiles that the community has created for a slow blade extension, very dramatic.
Yeah.
For the flickering, for all those effects. Pushing a button to make it feel like you're deflecting some blaster fire. It's all like, I can't believe we have this tech now that's attainable. When growing up, all we had were the tape measures.
Well,
some meter sticks.
Growing up, I'm not sure you could have afforded this lightsaber.
No. But this is super attainable. And this is the Saber Bay. If you search their Etsy store, the Saber Bay is who distributes this one. And they do RPF runs also. So 3D model and machine and do resin printed prototypes. And I had no idea the tech had gone so far. But super, super cool.
Yeah, you got to show Adam.
Yeah. We're working on some stuff. We are there's things to come using this tech in our world.
Cool.
And that does it for this episode. WWDC, Bezos going to space, the PlayDate, and the Looking Glass. Jeremy, anything you want to promote, announce?
No. I got to go back and check on my game, make sure it's still bug free, and hopefully I can talk more about that in the near future.
I would love to talk about that experience and also the game itself. Good luck on that. Hope it goes gold smoothly. No day one patch updates necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Me too.
Has 64 versus 64 multiplayer, right?
No. We didn't know that was going to be a thing.
I know. Yeah. Big checkbox. All right. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week, probably to talk about Loki as well. And here is an outro from the great job.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Test it.
Just one story this week. What were you guys doing 1.8 billion years ago?
Floating around the universe in various forms.